welcome to another edition of the Seven Sisters. I'm Ethereal Adam, and this is episode 3, the Foo Fighters. So for those of you that are new to the show, what's going on here is I have been documenting my ongoing relationship with the intelligence that controls a group of extraordinary UFOs known as the Foo Fighters. From 2013 until now, September of 2020, I have recorded over 70 UFO videos documenting my relationship with them. And today I'm going to show you the 6 different characteristics that the Foo Fighters display, setting them apart from other UFOs. Number 1, they have the appearance as balls of light. Number 2, they're silent when they move. Number 3, they have the ability to energize themselves. Number 4, they can become invisible to the human eye. Number 5, whenever they fly through the sky, they bounce back and forth off of gravity, and their speed is inconsistent. Number 6, whenever they get within 100 to 300 feet of you, you can see that the white balls of light have a purple hue around them. So, without further ado, let's take a look at that first video, bouncing back and forth off of gravity. February 22nd, approximately 7 o'clock at night. I'm filming the east part of the sky. This came from the north. As you can see, it's moving on an angle down. It's in the eastern part of the sky, moving south, southeast. It's as close as I can get with my zoom. I actually think it blurred a little bit because I zoomed in too far. Back out a little bit. Letting go of the tripod, you can see it moving. It's in that manner. Letting go of the tripod, you can see it moving in that manner. The natural movement. Letting go of the tripod. That's the natural movement. So in that last video, I was using a tripod, and I would push the Foo Fighter into the upper left-hand corner, then I would let go of the tripod so that you could see the natural movement. I showed several examples of the Foo Fighter moving in an S pattern and bouncing back and forth off of gravity. Also, you probably noticed that it was descending very rapidly when you would see stars in the background. So you saw that it had the appearance as a ball of light, you saw that it moved silently, and you saw it bouncing back and forth off of gravity. In the next video, I'm going to show you that they can energize themselves. Beautiful. It's very beautiful. It's very awesome. I'm very lucky to be able to see such awesomeness. The pulsing of the light. Wow. Did you see that? Beautiful. Okay, let's take a look at that again in 20% slow motion. There is a second Foo Fighter that popped up on the left part of the screen. It's moving down. Our original Foo Fighter number 1 is backing up and moving away. Now Foo Fighter number 2 is down by the bottom of the frame. It's leaving the screen. The original Foo Fighters moving back towards it, and it's going to energize. Look at that purple light, folks. I'm freezing it right here. Remember what that looks like, okay? Now, I continue to let it play so you can see it's not a falling star. It didn't dissipate. It's still flying around. That last video was recorded on April 25th, 2014. So far, I've showed you that the Foo Fighters have the appearance as balls of light, that they're silent when they move, that they bounce back and forth off of gravity when they fly, and that they can energize. In the next video, which was recorded on June 2nd, 2014, I'm going to show you what the Foo Fighters look like when they come from within 100 to 300 feet of me, and I'm going to show you that they can cloak themselves. Check it out. See that? That is really quite amazing. It's very special. Very special. That's the natural movement right there. Sorry, bugs. It is very impressive. Get away. Moths are nibbling on my hair. It's in the eastern part of the sky. It has moved from the southwest on a northeast route, and it's moving more east than north at this time. There's the natural movement, letting go of the tripod. Might zoom in just a little bit on that. Give us a better look. Panning, and there's the natural movement. Panning down and to the left, pushing it up in the upper right hand corner. There's the natural, it's the natural movement. I'm sure if anybody notices it at this time, they're writing it off as an airplane. Typically, when a person sees a light in the sky, they write it off as an airplane. If it's just a white light, it seems people are only suspicious of multicolored flashing lights. Okay, right here, it is getting ready to cloak itself. It's going to cloak itself, and then you'll see a faint blur of it in the middle of the screen shooting upwards. Pay attention. There it's cloaked. Look at the middle of the screen. Faint blur moving up. Cloaked. So what I've done here is I have showed you the 6 characteristics that a group of extraordinary UFOs display. And now, by identifying the characteristics, you can identify the UFOs. You no longer have to call them UFOs. You can now call them Foo Fighters. Likewise, in episode 2, I showed you the black triangle. Well, if you see a black triangle flying over your neighborhood soundlessly with an unusually large red blinking light, you may refer to it as the black triangle. When you compare the two, you notice the differences. Now you can distinguish between Foo Fighters and the black triangle. So how is it that I've come to know so much about the gravity distortion? You might have heard me talk about the gravity distortion before. Well, that's thanks to a man named Robert Lazar, also known as Bob Lazar, who around 1989 came out with a documentary telling the world that he was a propulsion expert, a physicist, that was hired by a private company to work for the government. He was sent to work outside of Area 51 at a location called S4. And he says that the government has confiscated several different types of spaceships, and that his job was to reverse engineer the propulsion systems of several models. One that he talks about is the sport model. He says it is a chrome disc-shaped craft, and he describes the feeling of being inside of it as very ominous. He said that everything was much smaller than what a human would be accustomed to, and specifies the chairs, that the chairs were very small. But he goes on to describe the propulsion system, where he talks about 3 different cylinders that are gravity generators that actually push against the force of gravity, much like 2 magnets. When you stick them together, they attract, but when you turn them around, they repel one another. And he explains that the propulsion system works by repelling gravity. He goes on to talk about Omicron configuration and Delta configuration, which are different types of travel. One is for over the skies, and another is interstellar travel. So I will leave some links about Robert Lazar in the description below, and I'll also look for some links of military pilots recording cloaked UFOs over military bases. Robert Lazar gave all this information out over 30 years ago, and much of what he's talked about I have actually seen with my own eye, and I recorded it, and I just played you some videos of them bouncing back and forth off of gravity. He also says at night that they would have the appearance as balls of light. So I believe Bob Lazar because I've actually seen what he's talking about and recorded it, and I've shared it with you. Unfortunately, he risked his life and his career to give us this information. He did lose his job, and he was shot at one time. And the way that the bulk of the people has repaid Bob Lazar is by telling him that they don't believe him. So by examining the dates on the videos that I recorded in 2013 up to September 7th, 2013, you can see that I was interacting with the Foo Fighters every week or two. I show you another extraordinary video. Now, it seemed as if the Foo Fighters didn't notice me until August 22nd, 2013, whenever a Foo Fighter stops and hovers, and in the video I say, I feel like it's watching me. Well, indeed, it was watching me, because some 10 days later on September 2nd, 2013, Labor Day, I left my grandmother's house on the north side of town, and I was on my way back to my house on the south side of town, and I saw a Foo Fighter following me in the daytime. I ran into the house, grabbed the camera, and I have that video for you from September 2nd, 2013. Then 5 days later, everything climaxed when a Foo Fighter came within about 20 or 30 feet of me, gave me a scare, and showed me that it could cloak itself.
There's something. It's moving. It's a light in the sky. That's a close-up. I'm going to zoom out a little bit. It's not moving that fast. There's no sound. There's no sound at all. I'm zooming back because it's getting close to the tree. There it is. There it is. It's going extra slow now. I kind of feel like it's looking at me, but it's a silly notion, huh? I mean, I am pointing a camera at it, but is. Look at that. It's about to fly into my tree. Well, there's my tree, so I'm afraid the tree is going to block the view. And there it goes into the tree. While it's going. Oh man, it just went up. It just went up into the sky. I came over here and I jumped up on my roof. I'm now on the roof, and here's the tree. You last saw it. It went on an angle straight up, and it disappeared into the sky. Up.
Okay, so what you just saw was actually two videos that were put together. What happened was I was in the backyard with my handheld digital camera, and I recorded the Foo Fighter, and I said that I felt like it was watching me as it slowed down and hovered for a second, and then it went behind the tree. Once it went behind the tree, I closed my camera, stopping the video. I ran to the stockade fence, jumped on the stockade fence. I jumped on top of the shed that was up against the fence, and from the roof of the shed, I jumped up on the roof of my house. Doing it this way, I can get on my roof in 5 to 10 seconds. Once I was on top of the roof, I opened the viewfinder of the camera, turning it back on, but before I could start recording the Foo Fighter that was still behind the tree, the Foo Fighter went up on an angle, very quickly and smoothly, into the sky until I could no longer see it. Up until this point, I had never seen a Foo Fighter move that quickly, and I do believe it was watching me, and I do believe it was reacting to me jumping up on top of the roof. Now, some 10 or 11 days later, on September 2nd, 2013, which was Labor Day, I had went to the north side of Oklahoma City to visit my grandmother. And I was leaving her house to go back to my house to get a pie to go see my other grandmother. Well, when I turned into my driveway, I looked up in the sky, and there in the daytime, I saw a Foo Fighter coming from the direction that I just came. I presume that it followed me from my grandmother's house back to my house. I jumped out of my car. I ran into my house and grabbed my video camera. I ran into my backyard, and when I opened the camera, the sun was so bright that day that it turned the viewfinder into a mirror. And when I looked into it, I saw my face reflecting back at me. I struggled as I was running around trying to get the Foo Fighter in the video finder, and there was a man on the other side of the fence working on a duplex behind my house. He and I looked at each other briefly, but he never stopped hammering to look up to see what it was I was so frantically trying to record. Finally, I went to the side of my house and got under the awning, which provided a little bit of shade. And in that shade, I was able to get the Foo Fighter in the viewfinder of the camera. Let's take a look.
It's the daytime. It's the middle of the day. Wow. It's impressive. That is impressive. It's the awning of my house. And when I get out here, there's a glare on my screen, and all I see is my face looking back at me.
Look at that video again in 3% slow motion. Did you see the orb that was associated with the UFO? Probably not, because it was moving super fast. Look at the bottom of the screen in the middle. You're going to see the UFO coming up in slow motion. Now it gets up here, we freeze the frame. Look down and to the left of the UFO. You see that streak of white light? That is an orb that is shooting across the screen from the north to the south, which is from the left to the right. Look at the gravity distortion around the UFO. Just like Robert Lazar said, you can actually see a force field around this UFO. Now, next frame, we see the orb underneath it. Now it arcs down and to the right. Now it shoots to the right. Here we go, right there. Now it's going to shoot down and to the right again. And it's going to move off the frame of the camera. Now look at the UFO. You can see the gravity distortion under it and around it. Okay, so we're going to go back into regular motion. And what you're looking at here is I'm in my backyard under my awning in the shade, so I can look into the viewfinder of my camera and get this in the shot. This is moving from the north side of town to the south side. Okay, it's slowly moving to the south. And you're going to see that it shows signs of intelligent life. And you're also going to see that it's there to maintain visual contact with me as it moves over my roof. You're going to see the awning that I'm under here in a second. You're going to see it move to the south over my roof, and then you're going to see it reverse direction. Here it goes. Bam, reversing direction. It's looking at me. It's maintaining visual contact. Now in this moment, I had to step out from under the awning and I did not notice it reversing direction. At this moment, I think it continued to move south. It was only later when I played the footage back that I saw that it reversed direction and it's up and to the left now and it's still watching me, but I've lost it in the sky. So there's really no telling how long it continued to watch me, and I was unaware that it was still there. I would go interview strangers, and I would ask them if they believed that extraterrestrial beings existed. Based on the information that over 100 people gave me, I developed the psychology of the belief or disbelief in extraterrestrial beings. It goes like this. There's 4 boxes. In box number 1 are people that say that extraterrestrial beings do not exist, and they say it without extraordinary proof. In box number 2 are people that say absolutely extraterrestrial beings exist, and they say it without extraordinary proof. In box number 3 are people that say that they think that there's life out in the galaxy somewhere, probably in the form of single-celled organisms, and that they don't think that it's been here. In box number 4, which is the only box that anybody should be in, it says, I can't say that there are extraterrestrials and I can't say that there are not because I haven't found extraordinary proof either way. Take a moment to consider which box you're in. You don't have to tell anyone, but at least be honest with yourself. So, at this time, what has my video evidence proven? Well, I've shown you 16 videos through episodes 1, 2, and 3, and the videos range from March of 2013 to September of 2013. That's a 7-month period where you can see that the Foo Fighters continually return to the skies above my home and allow me to record extraordinary things that they do. You can see that the way my relationship with them progresses, as on August 22nd, the Foo Fighters slowed down and hovered over my backyard, and I said I felt like it was looking at me. Then, a short time later, on September 2nd, 2013, the Foo Fighter comes to my house in the daytime. You can see what it looks like in the daylight. You can see the gravity distortion around it. You can see the orb that was associated with it, that it was intelligently controlled. And the most important part is you see it move to the south over my roof, but then quickly reverse direction back to the north so that it can maintain visual contact with me. This is absolute proof that we were interacting with one another and that I was having a close encounter of the first kind. So, even though this video proof is absolutely proof, because of my experience in interviewing so many people, I know that there will be people that say that these videos don't mean anything or don't prove anything, and I understand that these people are in box number 1. The reason why is because people in box number 1 have already told their friends and family that there's no such thing as extraterrestrials, and they don't want to appear incorrect. My video evidence absolutely proves that I have had an ongoing relationship with the Foo Fighters, and they are extraordinary UFOs. Now, while that doesn't prove that extraterrestrials are operating them, it doesn't prove that extraterrestrials exist, it is a giant step towards proving that they may exist. And that would make someone in box number 1 very uncomfortable. I've found that they will lie, they will destroy evidence, and they will stop at nothing to refute my evidence. Now, a person in box number 2 would love it, a person in box number 3 would be indifferent, and a person in box number 4 should also love it. All skeptics should be in box number 4, and they should say that they haven't found extraordinary proof to prove that extraterrestrials exist, but they haven't found extraordinary proof to prove that they don't. So, when a skeptic hears that I have this evidence, they should be excited. Any skeptic that hates this evidence or wants to refute it would be a skeptic that may have slipped down into box number 1 over time. So, just 5 days after this last video, which was taken on September 2nd, 2013, just 5 days later, on September 7th, I went out into my backyard and I saw a fake star hovering above my house. A fake star is a Foo Fighter that is hovering in the sky and has the appearance as a star. I began recording the fake star, and then out of the corner of my eye I saw a green and white light flashing. So I turned and I began recording the green and white light. Let's take a look at what happened. This is the fake star. I recorded it for 5 minutes and 4 seconds, and then I saw the green and white light coming. So after the green and white light left, I shut my camera, ending the recording, and then I immediately opened it back up and I walked to the patio to begin recording the fake star again. The green and white light had zigzagged its way towards me and given me a scare. I didn't want to show any fear, so this was my way of acting nonchalant. I'm just going to keep on recording the fake star like nothing happened. I recorded the fake star for 3 minutes and 1 second the second time. And during that time, I felt eyes on me from behind. It's that feeling you get when somebody walks in the room and you turn and look, but nobody's there. So my eyes were drawn to the duplex behind my house, the duplex from the video of September 2nd in the daytime when the man was hammering and he never stopped to look up to see the UFO that I was recording. It was that duplex. I turned back around and kept recording the fake star, and then a second time I felt a very strong feeling there was somebody behind me. So I turned and looked. My eyes were drawn back to the duplex, but there was nothing there. I turned back around. Finally, a third time, I felt the feeling again, and when I turned and looked, there was a Foo Fighter on top of the duplex. And when I say it was on top of the duplex, the bottom of the Foo Fighter was about a foot away from the roof. So it was hovering right on top of the roof. It was totally silent, and it was very slowly moving from the left and to the right. Very slowly, even ghostly. I got the Foo Fighter in the viewfinder of the camera, and then I thrust myself backwards, pushing my back up against the outside wall of my house. The idea here was that the awning was providing me a little bit of protection. It was my only defensive move that I had, and that's what I did. So as I was watching the Foo Fighter, it showed me that it could cloak itself. What it did, it was a horizontal silver light, and it moved a vertical line of invisibility across it from my right to my left. Where the Foo Fighter was there, it was 2/3 there, it was 1/2 there, it was 1/3 there, and then it was gone. Now, once it was gone, I told myself that it didn't leave. I told myself that it was invisible, and it had cloaked itself. And if I came out from under the awning to go stand on the patio and record the fake star, that it was going to zip above me and beam me up. And the reason why I thought that is because I understood that I had attracted attention to myself. That I had been standing in my backyard for 6 months now, 3 or 4 nights a week, very diligently documenting the Foo Fighters, and they realized it. They had noticed what I was doing, and they were probably saying, how come out of everyone in Oklahoma City, this guy sees us and is documenting us? And I just made myself the #1 person that they would want to talk to. So I was really scared. And in fact, I slid my back down the outside of my house, staying under the awning, until I made it to my back door, and I ran inside. I put the camera on my mantle above my fireplace, didn't touch it for 3 days, didn't go in the backyard for 3 days. During the 3 days, all I could think about was the Foo Fighter showing me that it could cloak itself, and it was right on top of my neighbor's duplex. That's all I thought about. In 3 days, whenever I looked at the video footage, I saw a green and white light. And when I saw the green and white light, I had no memory of it. The green and white light had been blocked from my memory. All I could think about was the Foo Fighter. As I was watching the recording of the green and white light, it came back to me, and I remembered, oh yeah, I did see this, and I did record it. So, what is my interpretation of the Foo Fighter appearing over my neighbor's duplex? Well, #1, it was as if they were saying, the guy that was hammering never looked up to see us, so look, we can be right on top of his roof and he'll still have no idea that we're here. Also, I used to get up on my roof with my camera and record them, so they were sending me a message, hey, when you were up on your roof recording, we were right next to you and you never even saw us because we were invisible. A third message that I got was a gift of knowledge, that they were saying, okay, well, you're documenting the extraordinary things that we can do. Watch this. We can cloak ourselves. And it was as if they were giving me a gift of knowledge, showing me something extraordinary that they could do, which I appreciated that. So, according to the psychology of skepticism, extraordinary claims require extraordinary proof. While I was reviewing the footage of that day, I accidentally erased the video of them cloaking themselves over my neighbor's duplex. So, according to the psychology of skepticism, you're supposed to say that it's a compelling story, but without that video, you can't believe that. And I encourage you to do so. I'm telling you about it because it did happen, and it's just something for you to keep in mind as a reference. However, I have shown you other videos of the Foo Fighters cloaking themselves and doing so many extraordinary things, it's not a total loss. Let's take a look at that green and white UFO again, and I'll show you all the things that you didn't see. First of all, at the top of the frame, you'll notice an orb swooping down and buzzing the green and white ball of light that's flashing. Here it comes. Notice that the orb is moving in an S pattern, down and then back up. So it's not a star in the background, it's an aircraft flying. And the green and white light kicks on a second light as some sort of a defense mechanism when it buzzes it. Now it's off the frame. Now, notice down and to the right in the bottom right-hand corner, there's going to be another orb that zips by the bottom of the screen. This one is moving so fast I put it in 3% slow motion and it barely slows it down. Here it is in the bottom right corner. There it is streaking across the screen. I'm going to freeze it in the bottom left corner. See the ball of light? And then it continues to move, zipping by. Now, notice the green and white light has split itself in two, but now the green and white blinking light is rotating around the white light clockwise as it is flying from the south to the north or from the left to the right. So it's moving to the north, and simultaneously the green and white blinking light is rotating around the other light clockwise. Right here you can see the roof line of my house. I'm in my backyard. I'm facing the west. This green and white UFO is in my front yard. Right here it shoots straight up real fast. Shoots straight up in the air. Now down below it and to the left is an orb. It's almost as if it shot up at the orb. Now this orb is moving to the left, and before it can leave the screen, up and to the right, there's another orb that appears. I freeze it right here. Up and to the right, there's that orb. Now when it starts, again, they will move exact but opposite to one another. Do you see that? They mirrored each other on the angle as they started moving again. They mirrored each other. That was very odd. Okay, so this is the roof line of my house, and it is gonna move to the north, and then it's gonna abruptly do a U-turn back to the south. We're in slow motion. It makes its abrupt U-turn back to the south, and now it's going to begin zigzagging its way from my front yard, over my roof, into the backyard, straight above my head. It's there looking right down on me, and now it is going to dip down in my front yard below my roof line and disappear forever. In the psychology of skepticism, when a skeptic is confronted with a difficult problem to solve, he can use Occam's razor. Occam's razor says, when you're confronted with a difficult task, just look at what the simplest explanation would be with the fewest new assumptions. Now, there were some ufologists that applied Occam's razor to mutilated cattle. Farmers were finding their cattle with the fatty tissue removed from their face, their lips, their tongue, their eyes, and they even found some cattle with all the blood drained out of it. So ufologists applied Occam's razor and said the simplest explanation would be extraterrestrials did this. And the skeptical community stepped up and quickly said, it's not the simplest explanation, it's the simplest explanation with the fewest new assumptions. So by plugging in scavenger animals, we would say we think scavenger animals did it, according to Occam's razor. It would be a simple explanation with no new assumptions, because we already know that there are scavenger animals, but we don't know that there's extraterrestrials. So the big assumption there is assuming that there's extraterrestrials. So I would have to agree with the skeptical community and say that using Occam's razor, scavenger animals is a better fit. Now, in the videos that I have, if I had one video of a ball of light moving soundlessly and bouncing back and forth off of gravity, and I said I was going to use Occam's razor and apply it to that, and that the most simple explanation is extraterrestrials, well, I would be assuming so much. But instead, if I take all 70 of my UFO videos and all of my experiences and the fact that I've had an ongoing relationship with the Foo Fighters, and that I've already showed you 6 or 7 videos of my personal videos that I took, identifying a group of UFOs as Foo Fighters, when I take in all the information and I apply Occam's razor to the 70 videos and the ongoing relationship, I see that the simplest answer would be extraterrestrials. And while I am assuming that extraterrestrials exist because they haven't actually been proven, I'm not assuming that they can cloak themselves. I'm not assuming that they can energize. I'm not assuming that they're balls of light that move soundlessly, that they can have a purple hue around them when they come 100 to 300 feet of me. I'm not assuming that they returned to the skies above my house for 2 years and allowed me to continuously record extraordinary things that they do. I'm not assuming that they buzzed the tail of a plane. And the whole reason why they're called Foo Fighters is because of Donald Myers back in 1944. He gave them that name off of a cartoon strip from the Chicago Tribune newspaper. Well, he said that they had the appearance as balls of light. They could appear and disappear. And he said that they would buzz the fighter planes. So I've already seen them doing this in today's time. And I've already recorded it and I've showed you that. So there's good reason for me to say that they are indeed the same Foo Fighters that he saw. Now the interesting thing here is, in order for a group of humans to have this technology that would have had it in 1944 that still have it today, that means they had it all this time, but no one has claimed responsibility for it. And nobody is using these craft in war, which if our military had flying ships that could cloak themselves, that would be huge. Certainly someone could take over the world with that type of technology. So it certainly doesn't appear that any humans have it. I've already ruled out that it was the military that buzzed that commercial plane, because a military pilot would be fired for that. And private propulsion company, the same. And then why would the military interact with a civilian like me for 2 years? In fact, it's been 7 years. And I have moved from the house where I lived, where I've been showing you these videos. When I moved to my new house, the Foo Fighters began showing up over the skies above my new house. I have seen the Foo Fighters in the skies above Jalisco, Mexico, Texas, New Mexico, California, Kansas City, Oklahoma, and even today, it's October of 2020. If I take my camera out tonight and stand outside, they will fly by and allow me to record them. This is an ongoing process. The Foo Fighters are patrolling our planet on a regular basis. And the fact that the average person doesn't even see them is a big indicator that we are inferior to them. And that's another situation about extraterrestrials. We know that the universe, especially our galaxy is so vast. Mathematically, there are at least 11 billion planets in the habitable zone, which means that there's 11 billion planets that could potentially have life. So statistically, there must be life. And while that's not good enough for the skeptical community to say that that's extraordinary proof that extraterrestrials exist, it's certainly an indicator that they probably do. So when we think it through, and we know that in order for extraterrestrials to come here, they would be using spaceships that are extraordinary, it's pretty elementary to say we need to look for extraordinary spaceships in our skies. Well, I've showed you the Foo Fighters, and I've showed you the extraordinary things that they can do. They can energize, that they can cloak themselves. I've ruled out military, private propulsion, I've ruled out natural phenomena, and the last thing that's left is extraterrestrials. Why would it be so hard to believe that they're coming here? Well, for scholarly type people that have won a lot of awards, that are maybe physicists or renowned astronomers or psychologists or college professors, for someone that's viewed as smart or very intelligent, for them to think this through, then they would have to admit that if these extraordinary beings are coming here, that we're inferior to them, that they are superior to us. So that would mean that all these people would have to admit that they're not as smart as these people. And I don't think that scholarly people like admitting that they're not as smart as people. Now all of a sudden, instead of being highly regarded and looked up to, you're inferior to a group of people. And I think human nature stops us from wanting to admit that. Also, when an intelligent person thinks this through, if extraordinary extraterrestrials are coming to our planet with technology that blows us away, when you think that through, you realize, well, they could conquer us if they want to. And so out of fear, people would want to reject the idea. Oh no, I don't want to even think about that because that would mean we could be conquered by them. Well, I'm here to tell you, the Foo Fighters are patrolling our planet every night, and they are superior to us, and they really already are in control from what I've seen. They can be invisible when they want to. Whenever we scramble our F-16, F-18 pilots to chase after them, they elude us. There's reports now that the Navy is giving saying that these vehicles can go 20,000 miles per hour. So many reasons for people to want to cover it up or don't want to talk about it, don't want to admit it. If it's not fear, it's arrogance, and simply not knowing. So at this time, I think I've won the right. I think I've earned the right to be able to consider that they could be extraterrestrial. So let's look at my thoughts on what happened this day on September 7th, 2013. For many years, I've considered that there was a cloaked Foo Fighter over my neighbor's duplex, and it was watching me record the fake star. My back was to that duplex, so they would have been behind me and very safe. They could have sent the green and white UFO out, which was an extraterrestrial drone, and they could have done it to see how I was going to react to it. And since I was calm and all I did was observe it, record it, and then after it disappeared, I went right back to recording the fake star, that might have encouraged the Foo Fighter, who could be an extraterrestrial, to reveal himself to me and turn his cloak off and allow me to get a look. Now, I ran in my house. What if I hadn't have run in my house? What if I would have instead walked towards the Foo Fighter? Did the Foo Fighter want contact? Would they have contacted me? It certainly seems that they respected my wish not to have contact. On the other hand, I've considered, what if the green and white light was a human drone, a government drone? In fact, it could be a man-made drone. I've done some research on drones. I have a friend that owns a drone that he paid about $1,000 for. It's not nearly as impressive as the green and white drone, or the green and white UFO that we saw. So if that is a human drone, it's probably worth over $10,000, maybe $30,000, $40,000, $50,000, as impressive as it was. And then we have to consider that if it was a government drone, perhaps it has infrared and UV lenses on it, because NASA has already talked about recording objects in outer space that enter our atmosphere that have cloaked themselves in the UV area, in the UV light spectrum. And the way that it works is in the light spectrum, you have about 10 nanometers to 400 nanometers. That's the ultraviolet spectrum. The human eye cannot see that. Then from 400 nanometers to about 700 nanometers, that is what the human eye can see. Then 700 nanometers to about 1050 nanometers is the IR spectrum, or the infrared spectrum. So simply by cloaking themselves in the UV spectrum, humans cannot see them unless they're using an ultraviolet lens. And by cloaking themselves in the IR spectrum, humans cannot see them unless using a night vision lens or an IR scope. And Air Force pilots in Mexico have recorded a group of UFOs, about 10 or 12 of them, while they were on patrol looking for drug runners in airplanes. They saw a group of UFOs and they were only visible in the infrared spectrum. So the governments of the world are coming out and talking about this, and it's not a secret anymore that these craft are cloaking themselves. So looking back on the experience, I can't say what the green and white light is, but I can say that the Foo Fighters tried to make contact with me that day. And so I know that most likely the intelligence that are controlling these ships is extraterrestrial. Now, proving that to you and conveying that to you in a professional manner, well, that's another story. So far, I've only showed you 17 of my some 70 videos. So at this time, is knowing that I had an ongoing relationship with the Foo Fighters for 7 months and showing you 17 videos, does that buy me a right to be able to say that I think they could be extraterrestrial? Skeptics usually say, I can't call one of these a spaceship because I didn't see it fly through space. Well, when am I going to be in space to see one fly through space? Skeptics say, you don't know what that is. It's flying through your sky, but you can't call it a spaceship. Well, how am I ever going to have prior experience to know what a spaceship is if we don't know what a spaceship is? There has to come a time when someone is smart enough and says, hey, I see an extraordinary aircraft. It's a UFO, and it's doing extraordinary things. It can cloak itself, it can energize, it's silent, it has the appearance as a ball of light, it's bouncing back and forth off of gravity as it moves, and when it gets close to me, it's got a purple halo around it, a purple hue. That could be a spaceship from outer space. There has to be a time when someone is allowed to say that. That could be a spaceship from outer space. Well, I've certainly given you a lot to think about. Until next time, this concludes episode 3, The Foo Fighters. Remember, if I didn't have the videos, I wouldn't tell you about it.